Greetings, abstraction students. I hope this finds you well. We've made it to a Friday. I imagine your weeks have been very busy with your work, with your family responsibilities, and all the other life things that occupy us throughout the week. And I know that uh, as we conclude our first week of class, um, this class may have rightfully and needfully taken a back seat in the work that you need to do on a weekly basis. And I just want to reiterate again my respect for you. While other people are putting their feet up and relaxing after their day of work, you are going to your desk and opening up books and opening up your computer, and you're working and you're pursuing this graduate program. And I respect that tremendously. And I also want to emphasize the fact that this class is tailored around. I teach these classes tailored around the fact that you are extremely busy. The times that you get to work on this class are in the evenings, often, and on the weekends. And so all of your writing assignments are going to be due on Sunday night at the end of the week to give you the weekend. If something comes up and you're not able to get your discussion prompt in or your writing assignment, just email me a few days earlier and just give me a heads up and let me know. I want to make sure that that you are able to stay on track, but also be able to make progress in a way that's according to the pace of your work weeks. What I'll try to do is post a short video chat like this and include that on Fridays. Beginning next Friday, it'll be a response to your discussion prompts. I'll have read them, responded to them personally, and I'll assess some basic themes, questions and issues that keep coming up that recur, and I'll address them in a way on Fridays with our video. I mentioned this in email. I just want to reiterate it face to face, as it were, that I've published the Canvas site. I'm using it as an alternative for those of you that are comfortable using it. You want to access the PDFs and those resources. You can do so. It's a stripped down platform. I'm only using the discussions menu tab that includes the weekly information. That's also where you'll do the discussion prompts. The assignments just list the three major writing assignments that you have, just so you have an idea. Keep track in your mind in terms of when those are due. But I'm going to continue to conduct the class exclusively through email. I'm going to write you every Monday. We'll include the PDFs, give you an outline, give you a video, and then on Fridays a shorter video as well. I apologize for the long video that I sent you on Monday, 40 minutes. Believe me, it took me a while to upload, and I'll try to keep them down to around 20 minutes or so for the most part, just to give you this outline, to give you a sense of a flow with the course. One of the problems with online classes is that they can be static, and they're essentially there's no sensitivity to the development of the pace of the class, and that's something that I want to be sensitive to as I'm reading your responses, as I'm reading your questions, as I'm thinking through how we're developing this course. I want to be able to respond on the fly, and I want to be able to have that spontaneity and flexibility. What I would like to talk briefly about today is just another way of thinking about abstraction, and some other ways for you to be thinking about it, not just as an art historical style, but as a way of conceiving of representing the world that is not unlike how we do philosophy or theology or science, and that ultimately the visual arts is not only a form of representation, it's also a form of abstraction. It abstracts, it simplifies, It's conceptual. It is a way of putting forth, creating a visual image of how the world is experienced. What is interesting, I think, about representational art is that what it does, you can say what Renaissance painting does, is create a continuity with the world of the space that's opened up in the painting and the space that the viewer occupies. It provides and presumes a coherent worldview and a solid foundation upon which the viewer and the picture is constructed. And you'll read this as you read through Alberti's essay on painting, in which the primary role of the painter is to transform the flat surface into a picture window through which an event is experienced that is continuous with the viewer, that is continuous with the viewer's perspective, that it is experienced as real, as natural. What is important to know is that the very process of representation in that way is an abstraction. It's a fiction. It is artifice. And so when we're looking at abstraction in terms of its relationship to representation, it's on a scale. And what you could say, how I think about this, the visual arts, say painting is not just the content, the representation of something. The work of art is not just the content, it's the form. It's not the whatness. What is it? It's the howness. And the best works of art force us to toggle back and forth between the form and the content. Not just what is being portrayed, but how it's being portrayed. So that artifice is part of the very fabric of the visual arts. Abstraction is the very, very process of the visual arts. What you have with Renaissance painting is the achievement of a visual technology in the 15th century in Florence, reaching its climax with Raphael in Rome in the early 16th century, in which the artifice is opening up this picture window. It is, through paint strokes, dissolving the flat surface and giving the viewer the experience of empty space. That visually the viewer enters imaginatively into that space to be present with those subjects. But that is an artifice. That was an abstraction that was achieved, that we too often lose sight of. Lose sight of the fact that it's an abstraction. Lose sight of the fact that it's those brush strokes. That Raphael's miraculous achievement is to put brush strokes side to side on a flat surface that creates the impression that there's actually open, empty space. But with the development of abstraction, what begins to happen is the focus then, for the Renaissance painting, content overrides the form. But in the development of modernism, and an abstraction is a manifestation of modernism in the visual arts, the form begins to take precedence. And we see this with painters in the 19th century in Paris that were called realists, which we'll talk about next week. Monet's paintings declare their artifice. What you see is not all that you see, and what you see can be deceptive, and what appears to be this is actually that. And he always is declaring that ultimately what a painting is paint strokes on a flat surface. And the development of modernism from Monet through Malevich, with those black on black and white on white suprematist paintings of 1915 to 1920, is that it declares that a painting is form, line, and color, paint strokes on a flat surface. Now, we see this in other art forms. We see the breaking down in theater. We see the breaking down of the fourth wall. In Brechtian theater, the actor turns to the audience and breaks through that wall of separation between the spectator and the audience to address them directly. It is a way of emphasizing the artificiality of the artistic practice. And I would say that the best works of art, in whatever form, hold that in tension. Hold the form and content in tension. Hold the whatness, what it depicts, with the howness. It's not just, a film is not just the narratives of action. It's the way the camera is held. It's the angles of shots. It's the gestures. It's the way that it's fabricated. Which you could say with abstraction, what ends up happening is that the emphasis is on the form. And also an emphasis on there is more to the world than what we see. And ironically, we'll see this with the development of realism and naturalism in Paris in the 19th century. That it is when artists are going out into the landscape, looking closely and intently at a sunrise, or a haystack, or a landscape, the difficulty of representing it yields to a focus on form. The visual image disintegrates. That what we think we see disappears on us. And it's not insignificant. I may have mentioned this in my first talk. That physicists have determined that 99% of the cosmos is invisible to the eye. So that empty space that Raphael carves out in the painting The School of Athens, in which we imaginatively, visually go into that forum to see Aristotle and Plato, that empty space doesn't exist. It's teeming with particles that we can't see. So what does representation mean? Is representation a painting? Is representation a mathematical equation? Is representation a theoretical conjecture? And also, what is the real? I mentioned my last talk, Courbet, the great Parisian realist painter, was asked why he didn't paint angels. And he said, if I see one, or show me one, I'll paint one. Well, Kandinsky's work, Malevich's work, and many of the abstract artists who are working from a spiritual perspective are affirming that painting can push further than merely representing empirically what we in our daily lives take to be real. I hope these thoughts are helpful to you. I look forward to addressing you again on Monday. Have a great weekend. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to email me. And I just can't tell you again how excited I am about this class. I think about this subject continually. So don't be surprised if I email you with other links and other ideas. So have a great weekend.